Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever, whatever time it may be where you're listening to this. This is Joe Szymanski with Elections Daily, bringing you another candidate interview for our Virginia 2021 series. Today, I have with me one of the Democratic candidates for House District 31, Rod Hall, with me today. Rod, thank you for coming on.
Hey, Joe, delighted to be with you. Happy Friday.
Happy Friday indeed. So, this first
Yeah.
question I ask to everyone who comes on with me: what made you decide to run for delegate?
Well, Joe, thanks for that question. Listen, service is in my DNA. I come from a family where service was at the core of everything we did. To quote Dr. King, the ultimate and persistent most important question is, what are we doing for others? And I think it is a testament to my mother that she ingrained that in the heads of her kids. My brother served close to 40 years in the United States Army, retiring with the rank of sergeant. I'm blanking on his rank, but pretty senior officer in the United States Army. My sister was, or is rather, working with the United States Post Office, and then it came down to me. I was a little adventurous as well, and so wanted to come to DC and immerse myself in public service and policy, and have established a record of service at the federal level with respect to my service as a staffer on Capitol Hill. From there, went on to serve in the Obama administration here within the state. I chair the Commonwealth Aviation Board, was recently appointed by Governor Northam to the Virginia Passenger Rail Authority. And so, service it runs through every vein in my body, and it is in that spirit that I'm offering myself as a candidate for the Virginia House of Delegates, District 31.
Yeah, and you mentioned, of course, that record of service, which I think for any candidate of any party, you have to admit would be incredibly impressive. You've worked for the Obama administration, the McAuliffe administration, and the Northam administration, or at least were appointed by all those administrations in some form. How do those experiences affect your view of our governments?
Well, I think it one first off, they were all and continue to be fantastic experiences, right? For me, there can be no greater deed than service. I think it is the ultimate measure in which our lives are judged, if you will. For my time on the Hill, working on transportation projects, mass transit projects that help people, get from their homes to their jobs, to service centers, what have you, to my time in the Obama administration serving as the head of legislative affairs for the Federal Aviation Administration, being the administration's point person with respect to interfacing with the House and the Senate, advancing the administration's priorities with respect to aviation policy, traveling across the country to communities, both large and small, being able to listen to their concerns about, their needs with respect to aviation and economic development. And I think, particularly that experience truly helped tee me up to be an effective member of the Commonwealth Aviation Board, was appointed as a regular member, ultimately elevated to chairman. And what I've loved so much about my service on the Aviation Board is that it has allowed me to go to every corner of the Commonwealth, to visit airports, communities with airports, again, varying sizes. And so obviously for me, transportation it's not only a quality of life issue, but for a lot of communities, their airport serve as their primary principal economic development driver, if you will, for corporations looking to come in and potentially establish service. And so, the state's airports are essentially the community's doorsteps to potential economic development opportunities. So it has been a sheer delight for me to get my hands dirty in that work, if you will, with respect to passenger rail authority. Look, Governor Northam has leaned forward into expanding commuter and passenger rail across the Commonwealth. So to be able to sit on that board and to have a direct hand in the future of passenger rail within the state, particularly for this district, as a number of folks, prior to, pre-pandemic, utilized VRE to get to work, to and from work, and what we're doing with the Virginia Passenger Rail Initiative to, increase efficiencies along the Eastern Seaboard to allow for more efficient freight and passenger and commuter rail traffic is just going to be phenomenal. It's going to increase service options, the multi-directional service options, and again, it all comes back to improving the quality of life. I've always been a big fan of the adage, when done right, when done equitably, when done from a standpoint ensuring that the proper stakeholders that have been involved, policy can serve as a very effective tool to change the trajectory and the quality of life for communities across the board.
Okay, and we'll get back to that issue of transportation soon. But first, I want to know Virginia Commonwealth politics. It's kind of been known as a club all these years. So how did you kind of get yourself involved? What did you do to first get involved in Virginia politics?
Yeah, well, one of the first things I did, obviously having worked on the Hill, had a great appreciation for just the local grassroots nature of democracy. And I guess I would back up and sort of point to my grandmother, who served rather for me and continues to serve, even though she's since passed away. She grew up on sharecrop lands out in East Texas, and her husband, my grandfather, when they attempted to engage in a democratic process, had not only their economic livelihoods threatened, but their actual livelihoods threatened for wanting to be participants in the democratic process. One thing led to another, led them to purchase their own land, so on and so forth. And so when I think about some of the indignities suffered by forerunners and particularly folks like my grandfather and grandmother that suffered the indignities with an eye towards one day their children and their children's being able to participate in the democratic process is one of the things that has always propelled my interest in service and being involved in policy and politics. And so once my family and I established roots here, became very active in my local Democratic committee, began to obviously become engaged with a host of community and civic initiatives. My fraternity, my alumni chapter of my fraternity, we have a very big mentoring presence here within the community, and so obviously that led to interfacing with a host of elected officials here at the local and state level. And one thing sort of led to another, and I look up and here I am running for office.
Yeah, so let's go back to this transportation. Obviously, a lot of those administration jobs that you've been a part of, that was based in transportation, which is a huge issue. The 31st is mostly based in Prince William, which is now kind of part of this big block that is Northern Virginia, and its transportation is considered a huge issue there. So what would kind of be your plan to fix the transportation issue in Northern Virginia?
Yeah, I appreciate that. And before I take that, let me go back to I made reference to my brother at the top of the interview. I just want to make sure I get his rank right. He retired with the rank of sergeant major, so I don't want him to potentially hear this and come after me. His nickname is Warhammer, so I don't want to feel the wrath of my older brother at some point. But going back to your question on transportation and infrastructure, and yes, most of my professional life has been immersed in transportation policy and funding, and I have a great appreciation for how smart and equitable transportation investment can transform communities, improve quality of life, jumpstart economic development, all of which I touched on earlier. And so, it's interesting to see sort of the federal folks sort of grapple with the issue. And I think obviously until they figure out what they're going to do, I feel strongly that states are going to have to take a stepped up leadership role in providing forward-leaning transportation solutions that are, one, sustainable, two, equitable, and three, expand transportation choice within communities with the greatest need. For example, here in our area, there's no weekend mass transit service. And so obviously, I think we need to sort of reimagine sort of what the 21st century, the next level transportation system looks like, right? Folks, still need a means to get to work, past, the traditional weekend day of Friday, if you will. And so examining ways that states can enable localities to be able to invest more operational funding into their mass transit solutions to expand services for people that are in need of a particular transportation service to get to work, again, to get to services within the community, schools, what have you, is something that I would obviously be taking a look at right out of the gate. Increased investment in mass transit. Obviously, I think the ultimate goal for us here within this part of Northern Virginia is absolutely the key prize for us will be at some point an extension of the Metro Blue Line further down into our area. But that is not going to be a cheap endeavor, if you will. When you think about, on average, I think I read this out of one of the reports out of the Federal Transit Administration, per mile of light rail, it could cost anywhere between 100 to 500 million per mile. If you're looking at the stations involved, that could average anywhere between 80 and 300 million for stations, and then the actual trains themselves from anywhere from 17 to 22 million. So it's not going to be a cheap proposition, if you will. But I think from the state level, there are things that can be done to expedite things on the front end, i.e. planning, i.e. environmentals, things of that nature. So those would obviously be some other, sort of out of the gate priorities that I would take a look at as well. Having worked on a full funding grant agreement for a mass transit agency in my old congressional office, that's something I have experience with, the FTA New Starts program. And so I think that I am well suited to be very much a key contributor to the overall movement to ultimately get additional mass transit service, Metro Light Rail down into our region. I mentioned the exciting developments on the horizon with respect to VRE. Hopefully, constituents within the area will soon be able to realize some of those increased services. So, those are just a couple of things. I would also like to take a look at the Virginia's Transportation Infrastructure Bank revolving loan fund. Obviously, with respect to the transitioning away from more carbon-heavy, intensive infrastructure to more clean, sustainable energy projects, ensuring that we have the necessary financing tools to construct these projects is going to be imperative, and to the extent that we can leverage both traditional and non-traditional financing mechanisms, that's certainly something that I will also be championing as delegate as well. So I guess the long story short, my goal would be to ensure we're leveraging every dollar we can. I know the importance, having, again, worked in both the federal level as well as in the congressional office, working with local constituency groups and local governments. The type, I feel that I have the temperament, the know-how, the wherewithal to be a very effective, competent delegate for the 31st District.
Okay, so moving on then now, healthcare. It's a major issue up and down the ballot for voters. Do you support Medicare for all, or do you think healthcare reform should go down another route?
No, I think, when you look at healthcare, for me, I view it as a fundamental right, right? And as delegate, I would work to ensure that every resident of the Commonwealth has access to quality, affordable care, no matter their means or the zip code in which they reside. I was talking to someone the other day during Black Maternal Health Week, and was just giving an example, because I'm sure the questioner was like, well, what gives Rod Hall the weight and standing to discuss maternal health? And my response was, well, it's because I've lived it. I almost lost my wife and my she's now two-year-old daughter during her delivery. It was a very complicated delivery, which, long story short, ended up with both my wife in the adult ICU with the team trying to save her life because she had lost a lot of blood, and my new baby girl being in the NICU because she had some complications during their procedure as well. And so for the next 5 days, which is usually a joyous occasion with respect to the arrival of a newborn, and the mother is usually bonding with her newborn, I spent pacing from one wing of the hospital to the next, checking in with the very dedicated teams, working to save their lives, and all the while could not help but to think, if we did not have proper health insurance, proper health insurance coverage, could things have turned out differently? And thank the Lord, they are both healthy and up and about, and have completely moved on from that episode. But for me, that episode really crystallized for me just the vital importance and necessity of some baseline level of health coverage for folks here within the Commonwealth.
Okay, so you are running in a primary, and
Yes.
in that primary does include the incumbent delegate Elizabeth Guzman.
Yep.
Why do you think you're a better fit for this district than her?
So I appreciate that, and there are a couple of folks that we're all competing to have the honor to represent the constituents of the 31st district. And I would just make a point to say that this is the 31st seat is the seat of the people, and they will have an opportunity to decide. Early voting is currently underway, and the ultimate in-person date is election day is June 8th. I feel that based on my collective set of experiences, my track record with respect to issues that folks care about with respect to quality of life issues, transportation and infrastructure being one of them, as we discussed, my having established a good working relationship with a host of area leaders here within the area and across the Commonwealth, whom I'm proud to call endorsers. I feel that I am, as a result of that, best suited to lead the charge on behalf of the representation of the constituents of the 31st House District.
Okay, and to kind of continue on the way into this primary here, you had a very good fundraising quarter for a first-time candidate, but your main opponent, again, Delegate Guzman, she dropped out of the lieutenant governor's campaign, and will be able to transfer her funds from that campaign to her delegate campaign. Do you think you will be able to keep up with the amount of money that it seems like will be spent in the remaining months of this primary?
So, to your point, yes, my campaign had a very good first quarter. I think it speaks to the very positive, substance-based campaign that we have run all throughout since announcing back in mid-January. And so I do not expect that to change. I am most thankful and grateful to all of our friends and supporters and contributors that have supported me to date, and expect that level of support will continue to be strong on through primary election day on June 8th. And I want to underscore, I did not intentionally seek out an opportunity to challenge the incumbent. I am in this race because the incumbent announced that they were running for lieutenant governor and no longer intended to represent this area. And so, as a result, here I am.
Okay. I feel like this is an important question, not just after the last year or the past 5 years. I want to know, what's your view on criminal justice reform in Virginia?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question. It's a loaded one for me, right?
Yeah.
As a black man, as a father of two young sons, it has been I'll just be honest with you. It's been a roller coaster of emotion for me, if you will. My oldest son is now 11. He understands that in a very meaningful way that keeping up with current events is a part of his dad's job. And so, the Floyd incident last year really caught his attention, really sparked a lot of questions. And so, as a father, I had to have some very serious, substantive, just bare conversations with my boys about, the strained history, oftentimes between African Americans, particularly African American men and law enforcement. And I remember one day last year, after having a conversation with my son about what you should do with respect, if you're ever involved in law enforcement, stop or something like that. And we had a very long conversation. I went for a run afterwards, and it became so much. Just the moment of the day, with the video of George Floyd on the ground and the ensuing peaceful protest. I went for a run and I just broke down. It just became so heavy on me, if you will. And so, the other week I was delighted to see what is hopefully some modicum of justice the Floyd family feels as a result of that of that verdict. But I think, just being completely open and transparent here, I still had in the back of my mind, okay, this could potentially go another way. Thankfully, justice was ultimately achieved, but it's been emotionally draining for me, if you. And I think that underscores the amount of work that will continue to need to be done, not only within the Commonwealth but across the country, to ensure that there is a meaningful level of trust between law enforcement and the communities they serve. I fully appreciate that the Commonwealth is now the first state within the South to have abolished the death penalty. That is something that we should most certainly herald, but at the same time, I think we should not lose sight of what appears to be a pivoting from individuals being disrespectfully treated and killed on death row, relative to what appears to be black men still being killed at routine traffic stops. And so I think it speaks to more work needs to be done.
Thank you very much for that. So one final question then for you. If you are elected delegate, what do you think would be the first bill you would look to propose on the floor of the House of Delegates?
Absolutely. A bill with respect to expanding universal PreK. That would probably be my first piece of legislation out of the bat. I'll tell you why. My mother was a teacher's aide for more than 3 decades. I'm the father of 2 kids in public school, and I just feel within every fiber of my core that all kids deserve an opportunity to benefit from a great public education, regardless of their zip code, socioeconomic status, what have you. I lost my father at the age of 4 due to a massive stroke, and I can only imagine what must have been going through my mom's head at the time, thinking, Lord, I'm now a widow. How do I keep this young kid on the straight and narrow and out of trouble. And thankfully, there was a strong pre-K program in my community that she was able to leave, drop me off at, and not have to worry about whether or not I was being left in a nurturing environment that was preparing me to read and count before I entered the door of kindergarten. And so I think currently the Commonwealth ranks in the middle of the pack amongst states with respect to pre-K access for third and fourth graders. I think there's been, the past couple of years, particularly in the Northern administration, some significant gains made. But to the extent that we can ensure we cover all deserving 3 and 4 year olds and universal pre-K, that is something that I most definitely want to be a champion for. Not only will it benefit their educational development, but will also provide a level of economic security for the child's mom and dad. And so that is something that I most definitely want to be a champion on and for.
Okay. Well, folks, I want to thank you all for listening in once again. This has been Rod Hall. He is one of the Democratic candidates running for the 31st District. Sir, I want to thank you again for coming on today, and I want to wish you good luck with the rest of your campaign.
I appreciate you. It's been a pleasure to chat with you and be with your listening audience. And again, just in the event my brother happens to listen to this piece, he retired from the United States Army as a sergeant major. I don't want my big brother coming to beat me up. So, Joe, thank you very much, bro. It was a pleasure chat with you.
Thank you very much, sir. Have a great rest of your day.